and welcome to my soft office. So named because I work from here a lot and also it is very, very soft. Now, I have brought you here today to talk to you about my job, really, what I do for a living, which for the most part is writing. I've written a lot of stuff over the years, mostly for the screen, so short film sketches, series, features, and all the treatments and outlines and stuff that accompany them. But I have spent the majority of the past year writing a book, which you probably didn't know about because I hardly ever mention it. Before I dive in, I would just like to thank HP, not the sauce people, the computer people, which is the same joke I made 2 years ago when I worked with them before. You might remember they sent me to Cannes to speak on a panel about women in film. And well, I guess they just loved working with me so much that they've come back for more. Which works out very well for me actually, because I have got myself a lovely new little laptop out of it. It is called the HP Elite Dragonfly. Very sleek, very stylish. I've been using it for the past couple months, mostly for the book edit, but also emails, admin, presentations, all sorts. And I have to say, it has been an absolute joy to work on. More on that in a bit. But for now, back to writing, and in particular, how I write. In trying to figure out how I should write, I've read a lot of books by authors I admire like Stephen King, Annie Dillard, George Orwell. There are loads and loads of books out there on writing, so I would recommend for a start that you read a couple of those. I also listen to a lot of podcasts by authors and screenwriters I like. There's a really good podcast called Script Notes, which is specifically about writing for the screen, but I find that really, really helpful. And as different as all the advice is that I've heard, the one thing that seems to be true across the board is that everybody's process is different. No two writers are the same, and there's no right way to write as such. It's whatever works for you, whatever helps you get words from your head onto the page, you know, and it can take years to figure out what your process is. So first things first, when should you write? Well, the answer is, as I've just said, whenever works best for you. I spent a very long time trying to convince myself I was a morning person, and I'm just not. I actually do my best writing in the afternoon. So I tend to sort of ease myself into the day, use the morning to get a few things ticked off my to-do list, and then get stuck into writing about midday, 1 o'clock, and work right through to the evening. On average, I'd say I tend to put in about 4 or 5 hours of writing per session. That's just the point at which I naturally start to feel quite drained. That said, there are of course days where it's just flowing or I'm up against a deadline and I can write for 10, 11, 12 hours. I don't recommend it. Those days absolutely destroy me. But on those kinds of days, I would write maybe 3,000 or 4,000 words. I know there are some writers who that's just an average day for them, but that's quite a lot for me. In terms of how much you should write, obviously that depends on the person and the project. When I was in the full swing of writing the book, I was doing maybe 700 or 800 words on average per day. And there were of course days where I wrote a lot less than that, or I didn't write anything at all, and that can be really, really disheartening. But one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the years is to just accept that you could spend an entire day staring into space thinking about the project and not get a single word on the page. And sometimes those days are just as important as the ones where you get thousands of words written. That's just how it is sometimes. Even though it's frustrating and it's difficult, you have to accept that it's all part of the process. Which kind of segues onto scheduling. So, once you've figured out when you're going to write based on your mood or your energy levels or your lifestyle outside of writing, I mean, maybe you have a full-time job so you can only write in the evenings, maybe you've got a kid so you have to work around them. Whatever your situation is, my advice would be to dedicate a certain amount of time to writing and stick to it. So if you said you're going to write for 2 hours every evening after work, for example, you have to turn up for those 2 hours. Even if you don't want to, even if you're not in the mood, even if you don't feel creative, just turn up and sit with it. Worst case, you get nothing done. Best case, you feel inspired and you get loads done, but you'll never know if you don't try. Where should you write? Well, probably not in bed. As much as I love my soft office, and I really do, and I work from here a little bit too much, you probably shouldn't. It's not good for your posture, and also it kind of trains your brain to associate the bed with working instead of sleeping. Oops. So I usually find myself working from my slightly less soft office, which I know, it's not good for my posture either, and you absolutely should work from a desk, but I'd be lying if I said this wasn't where most of my writing got done, except usually with a cup of tea and a blankie. In fact, the majority of my book got written on this very corner of this very sofa. Sometimes I decide to take myself off out to work for the day, and this is where my cute new little laptop comes in handy. It's very small and lightweight, so I can just pop it in my bag and off I go. Writing can get a little bit lonely sometimes, so it's good to just get out, work from a cafe for the day, be around other human beings. Even if you're not working with people directly, it's nice to just have people around here, a bit of chatter. And also the simple act of getting dressed. and going outside can be good for your mental well-being. Thankfully there are loads of great spots in central London where you can get yourself a cuppa and settle in for the day. A lot of cafes cater to creative types too, so with lots of other people working around you, it can feel like being part of a little community. Some places have plenty of plug sockets where you can charge your laptop, and they'll even let you use the Wi-Fi for free, which is always a plus. That said, this HP Elite Dragonfly laptop has an all-day battery life and 4G connectivity, so... One thing I've really enjoyed while writing the book is having a team to check in with. I'm working with a publisher called Unbound, and we meet up a lot to talk about the creative and logistical side of things. If you are working with a team or a writing partner, I find meeting people in person or even having regular video calls can really help you feel more supported and less lonely throughout the process. A question I get asked a lot is what I like to listen to while I'm writing, which is a really good question. And I personally can't listen to anything with lyrics in at all, because just hearing words distracts me from the words I'm trying to write, even if I try not to listen to them. So I tend to listen to a lot of instrumental music, but even then, if it's too busy or dramatic, I can find that distracting as well. I mostly just search for chill instrumental playlists on Spotify, to be honest, and they tend to do the trick. Or sometimes I'll pop on a film score if it fits with the mood of what I'm writing. I listened to the score from If Beale Street Could Talk quite a lot while I was writing the book. Also Interstellar and A Phantom Thread. Yeah, there's loads of different ones that I tend to come back to a lot. But because every chapter was so different tonally and thematically, I found myself listening to some pretty varied stuff to try and put me in the right mood for each one. Like, for example, one chapter is set in Paris, so I was listening to a lot of French music while I was writing that, and it didn't distract me because I couldn't understand the words. The funniest though had to be the chapter set in Dublin at Christmas, because I wrote that during the summer, so I was just sat in the middle of a heat wave in London, blaring traditional Irish Christmas music every day. But this is the unexpected stuff you learn about yourself as you go, you know, the things that work, the things that don't work, the random little things you never would have thought of. But all of that is what makes your writing process, and by extension your work, unique to you. Like I said before, every writer is different, and this is just my process, this is just what works for me. Hopefully some of that'll work for you too. If not, hopefully it'll set you on the path towards figuring out what works for you. You might be a morning person, you might be a night owl, you might like to listen to music, you might need complete silence while you work, but whatever it is, take your time. Figure it out. You'll get there eventually. And that is it from me, I'm afraid. Thanks again to HP for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching. Happy writing.